Well, hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Opportunity in the Sharing Economy, How Airbnb Has Worked with DMOs Around the World. My name is Jim McCall. I'm with DMAI. For those of you who are familiar and those who are not, I'd like to welcome you to this webinar today. You may know that we also welcomed our new CEO, Don Welsh, this week. He wanted me to extend his gratitude for joining us and his excitement to work with all of you in the future. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. We will be recording today's webinar. That recording will be emailed out to all registrants within the next 4 business days. We'll also be sharing the presentation slides. We will be accepting questions throughout the webinar. So if you use the questions panel on your GoToMeetings dashboard, you can submit questions throughout the presentation. I will be monitoring those questions and serving them up to our panelists at the end of the presentation. And with that said, I will now pass it over to Paul Ouimet.
Well, thank you, Jim, and hello to everyone on this webinar dealing with a very important topic. I think since we began Destination Next 2 years ago, the sharing economy has been one of the trends that we've been watching the most closely, and the impressive growth of Airbnb has been at the top of our list. Our team really believes that Airbnb represents significant opportunities for destinations, provided a few policy issues are proactively addressed. And I think DMAI today is delighted to have Molly Turner, the Global Head of Civic Partnerships with Airbnb, with us to deliver this session. Just before I turn it over to Molly, I understand there are a number of people on this webinar who are not members of DMAI and who may not be familiar with our organization. DMAI is the Global Trade Association for Destination Marketing Organizations. It has over 600 convention and visitors bureaus and tourism boards providing educational resources, advocacy, and training for our industry. And this is a picture of our new President and CEO, Don Welsh, who, as Jim mentioned, officially joined the organization yesterday, and we're all looking forward very much to working with him. For those who are not familiar with Destination Next, Destination Next was an initiative started by DMAI 2 years ago, and it really began as a future study looking at key trends in the industry and their impact on destinations and marketing organizations. But it's really grown into a very powerful new strategic tool to help communities objectively assess their destinations and help position themselves for improved growth. In January of this year, to help promote the advancement of several best and next practices that we're uncovering in our work with destinations around the world, we began a series of monthly webinars. These are the 3 topics of the webinars to date, and all of these are available at the URL shown on this page. And the other significant development is for all of the people who've registered for this webinar today, and I think we've got about 560 registered just to demonstrate the tremendous interest in this presentation today. We will be emailing out this presentation along with some other background information that we have collected on the sharing economy and Airbnb. That will be sent out by Jim probably on Friday of this week. So with that, I will turn it over to Molly Turner.
Thank you. And hello, everybody. Good morning from San Francisco. It's about 8:30 a.m. in San Francisco, California today, and I understand that you're all joining from all corners of the world. And I just want to say thank you for joining, and I really would like to thank DMI for asking me to do this webinar. It sounds like they have received requests from many of you who are interested in understanding the shared economy and specifically Airbnb and how destinations can work with companies like ours. And so my hope is that today I can help shed some light on who Airbnb is, our philosophy in working with destinations, share some examples of how we've done that, and then really I'm very eager to learn from you all in the at the end when we have an opportunity to answer some of your questions. And just to begin, I'd like to say Airbnb recognizes that tourism is one of the most important industries in the world, and we really recognize the impact that it can have on destinations. And our goal is to work collaboratively with the existing tourism industry and with the leaders in destinations to ensure that our business continues to have a very positive impact on destinations. But we also understand that our rapid growth over the past 8 years of our existence does present challenges along with opportunities, and we want to help destinations navigate those challenges and opportunities together. And so with this webinar, I'm hoping we can review some of those challenges and opportunities, get your very useful feedback, and build a collaborative approach together. So the agenda today, I'm going to give you a very brief introduction to Airbnb. I'm assuming that most people are familiar with the company. We can follow up with some additional materials at the end, and if you have specific questions about how our platform works, I'm happy to answer those. Then I'm going to very quickly transition to looking at the impacts that Airbnb has for destinations. Going to address some of the challenges, specifically regulatory and tax challenges that we know destinations would like to address, and then review opportunities for collaborations between Airbnb and destination managers. And I would just like to say before I kick things off, I acknowledge that not everybody in this webinar speaks English, and that it's a very international audience. So I want to thank you for following along in English, and also say that we are very open to doing more webinars of this kind in other languages and that are more tailored to international modes of destination management. So we look forward to your feedback on that and hope to do more of these. So just a brief introduction to Airbnb. As many of you know, home sharing has existed since the beginning of time. Odysseus relied on home sharing to get around the Mediterranean thousands of years ago. Airbnb did not invent it. However, the new technologies that Airbnb uses have enabled home sharing to reemerge as a primary form of accommodation once again, and it has allowed more ordinary people from more places in the world to participate in home sharing, both as travelers and as hosts, as people who open up their homes to others. And we believe Airbnb's goal is that by opening up this opportunity to more people than ever before, the enormous economic and social benefits of travel and tourism can be democratized to more people and places than ever before. For decades, we have been selling a postcard picture version of destinations to travelers. My hometown of San Francisco is famous for the Golden Gate Bridge, and everyone wants to capture the picture of the Golden Gate Bridge when they come to San Francisco. But what Airbnb has found is that travelers don't want the postcard picture version of a destination anymore. They want to live the destination like a local, and they want this view of the Golden Gate Bridge which may not be a postcard version, but the locals version. This is a view from someone's home. They want to experience the city like a local. They want to go to the local grocery store, the local bookstore, walk the streets like a local would. And they want to stay in the local's home with all of the character and quirks that come with that. And very importantly, that I've learned, travelers want to interact with local residents in an authentic and personal way. And platforms like ours are enabling them to do that. And just to give you a sense of how mainstream this has become, this is a graph of Airbnb's growth by number of listings. And today we have over 2 million listings, which I believe makes us the largest accommodations company in the world in terms of rooms. And it's pretty clear that this is going mainstream very quickly. This is something that people from all walks of life all over the world want to participate in. Here's a map of 2015, all of our top markets, and you can see that this is really a global phenomenon. For the past several years, we've been really focused on building the business in the United States and Europe, but as you can see, Asia, Latin America, and Africa, and the Middle East are starting to grow enormously, and we will continue to invest significantly in those regions in the years to come. So today, Airbnb has over 2 million listings, as I said, is in over 34,000 cities and over 190 countries. And that is extraordinary global growth for a company that's only been around for 8 years. It also means that there are a lot of destinations for us to work with, and we want to work with all of them. So that's a lot of work to do. And so I'm really pleased that this webinar is so popular and so many of you have signed up, because this is a great way for us to talk about how we can work with destinations and reach more destinations than we could just speaking with you all one-on-one. So I'd like to talk about our understanding of the impacts of home sharing at scale for destinations. And the first question that we get from a lot of destination managers is, what is the impact on the traditional tourism industry and specifically on hotels? And we understand where that question comes from. Hotels are a very important stakeholder in the destination. They are important stakeholders to your organizations, and they are huge economic drivers and investors in your destinations. And Airbnb really sees hotels as complementary to our business. We do not see ourselves in competition with hotels. And what we've been learning over the past couple years is that many of the biggest hotel chains in the world see us the same way. And here I pulled out a couple quotes from some recent articles in the New York Times and in the Washington Post, where they actually interviewed hotel CEOs from around the world and took some quotes from their quarterly earnings calls with shareholders, where they said that they believe that Airbnb is actually stimulating demand rather than displacing existing demand. If anything, Airbnb is only impacting their ability to price higher at the customers. I'm quoting here the second quote, what would be described as sort of gouging rates during peak season. And that it's really not significantly impacting the business. And we're happy to see that, and we really believe in that, and we believe that we can help grow the tourism pie together in collaboration with the various forms of accommodation providers. But you're not in the business of running hotels. You're in the business of running successful destination. And so I want to talk about the impacts on the destination as a whole. And that's something that Airbnb really cares about, which is why we have done in-house and commissioned multiple studies looking at measuring the impacts of home sharing in destinations around the world. And the data I'm going to share with you is from about 20 studies we've done from around the world. What we have found by surveying Airbnb travelers is that they use Airbnb to travel because 91% of them want to live like a local. They want to live in a specific neighborhood when they travel, and they're able to do that because 74% of Airbnb properties are located outside of the main hotel districts. So just by the nature of where they're staying in the destination, they're able to have a different kind of experience than they would have when they traveled the last time and stayed in a hotel. This does not mean they travel exclusively on Airbnb. Many Airbnb travelers will stay in a hotel one trip and stay in an Airbnb the next time they go to the destination. Their behaviors when they stay on Airbnb in a destination, we have found, are different from their behaviors when they stay in a hotel. On average, in the destinations we've studied, Airbnb travelers spend just over 2 times longer in the destination when they stay on Airbnb, and their spending is almost 2 times as great. So while they may be saving money per night on accommodation, what they tell us is that they actually spend all of the money they saved on other experiences while they're there, and they spend that money to stay longer. And this is, for us, the key data point. 42% of Airbnb traveler spending is in the neighborhood where they're spending the night. And the best way to explain that is to visualize that with this map. Again, my hometown of San Francisco, the blue dots are hotels in the city, and the light blue dots are the Airbnb properties in the city. If 42% of Airbnb guest spending is occurring in the neighborhoods where they're spending the night, you can see by the location of the light blue dots how Airbnb is helping distribute the economic impacts of tourism across the city in a way that has never occurred before. This is helping support local businesses in neighborhoods that tourists have never gone to, and helping keep a diverse array of the city's neighborhoods vibrant for both visitors and locals alike. Now, we're also really interested in looking at the impacts on the Airbnb hosts. These are ordinary residents who live in the destination who have decided to open up their homes to travelers from around the world. And we want to understand what motivates them to do that, and why, and what kind of impacts does this have on their life. What we found in surveying hosts around the world is that they are ordinary residents who in the United States we would call middle class. A large portion of them are also low income, earning below the median wage for a city. And they are starting to host because they're struggling to pay their bills and they need to make some supplemental income. These are not people who work in the tourism industry. For the most part, they have other full-time jobs, but they start hosting because they are hospitable, they want to meet people from around the world, maybe learn a new language, and they need to earn some extra income. And they tell us that they spend that income on regular household expenses like rent, mortgage, groceries, etc. So this is really a lifeline for ordinary residents and a way that ordinary residents can engage with the very powerful tourism economy. And specifically for destination managers, I think it's really important to understand that Airbnb is helping engage your local community in your industry in a way that has really never happened before. They don't work in the industry, but they now have a very personal connection to it and can be great ambassadors for you within the city and within their neighborhoods. So we recognize, as I mentioned, that the rapid growth of this activity in destinations around the world presents some challenges. And I would like to address some of these challenges head on. So, you know, since the days of Odysseus, people have been opening their homes to fellow travelers from around the world. This is nothing new. And for decades, you know, we have our relatives and friends stay in our home for free. I think everyone would agree that no regulations are necessary for when your grandmother comes and stays in your house for the week. On the other side of the spectrum, there are full-time businesses like hotels that are run 365 days a year, that are built as commercial properties that have very heavy regulations. Some might argue there are too many and those regulations are too onerous, but the goal is to ensure the safety and security of strangers to the city, and that a building that is constantly being turned over with new guests is being run properly. What home sharing at this scale has opened up is a place kind of in the middle, perhaps a new category where someone may only occasionally be renting out their primary residence, the home that they live in, for a portion of the year to travelers. And what we found is a lot of destinations maybe acknowledged that this existed, but it never existed at a scale that would require regulations to be written for it. And the existing regulations for the commercial hotel that's run year-round may in fact be too onerous and just not appropriate for this new category. And so we have worked with jurisdictions around the world on defining this category so that it is very easy for regular citizens to comply with, but also ensures the safety, security, and compliance of this activity. And so just to give you a very quick summary of regulations around the world that have been passed in the past couple years with our support. The city of Amsterdam was one of the first in the world to pass new regulations, creating a new category specifically for this activity. The UK, the Queen of England, actually signed a law clarifying these rules, allowing residents to share their homes for up to 90 days a year without permission. A variety of cities in the United States created these categories. And I should point out that no two destinations are alike. We understand that every destination has its own unique context, its own concerns, and its own form of tourism. And that is why we're not advocating for one form of regulation that should be applied equally everywhere. A resort town may require very different regulations from a big city like New York. And so we want to work with destinations to figure out what makes sense for your specific context. And following this webinar, we're going to be sending around some more examples of different regulatory models that you may find are more applicable to your specific context. A very important question that we get from a lot of destinations is, what is Airbnb's position on taxes? And my first question in return is, what kind of tax? Every destination has a different kind of tax that may apply to this activity. Income tax, hotel tax or bed tax, etc. And just at a very high level, Airbnb's philosophy on taxes can be summarized here in this slide. The Airbnb community wants to pay their fair share of taxes. However, when the local laws are unclear about how this activity is regulated, it can make it very difficult for individual hosts to remit their taxes. Just as an example, in some cities, a host will go into the tax collector's office and say, I'd like to pay the hotel tax for the past year. And the tax collector will give them a form, and the host can't fill out the form because it was made for a professional hotelier and doesn't really work for an ordinary citizen renting their home 3 weeks a year. And so something as simple as changing the form so that it's easier for people to fill out go a long way. But Airbnb wants to be a better partner than that. We want to partner with cities and states so that we can step into the shoes of our hosts and collect and remit the taxes on their behalf. Our technology has made hosting so easy. We want to use it to make tax remittance easy as well. So Airbnb has entered into voluntary collection agreements with tax authorities around the world that both protect our hosts' privacy, but also ensure that cities and states receive the revenue that they're owed. And we are very eager to expand that around the world as we learn better how to do this by piloting it with several jurisdictions right now. Additionally, there are more cities, states, and countries that are adopting laws that centralize hotel tax collection and streamline local collection practices. So like I mentioned, something as simple as changing the paperwork so it's easier for new people who don't have full-time tax advisors and lawyers to do this paperwork on their own. So the headline here is we really want to make sure destinations are receiving the tax revenues, and we want to work with destinations to streamline that so that we can make it as easy as possible for hosts to pay their fair share. And throughout all of this, we believe, Airbnb believes, that destination managers can play a really crucial role in helping Airbnb, our local community, and the local government figure out some of these challenges. And the most successful collaborations with destination managers, we've found that destination managers play these 4 roles. 1, they are the industry experts. When the local mayor or governor has questions about what to do about the shared economy or home sharing, they go to the destination manager to ask for advice, and the destination manager is armed with the most up-to-date information, best practices, all of the information that the local elected officials need to make the most informed decisions. The second thing is that the destination manager is an advocate for the visitor and for what's best for the destination, not just what's best for hotels. It's really, really crucial. We understand that hotels are important stakeholders in destinations, but in order to get this right, the destination manager really needs to be an advocate for what's best for the visitor and for the destination as a whole, not just what's best for the industry. The third thing is that it's really important to establish guiding principles and help keep everyone on track toward those goals. There are a lot of different constituencies in a destination that all want different things. And what we've seen is some destinations overcomplicate the regulatory process in a way that actually undermines it. And a year later, they have to go back and simplify it. So a really great role that destination managers can play is making sure everyone remembers members what the goals are and the key principles and keeping everyone on track, and simplifying when things need to be simplified. And then the last thing is, and we're hopeful that this webinar can help with this, is the destination managers can be the source for best practices. And we in DMAI would really like to arm you with a variety of best practices that you can sift through to find the ones that's most applicable to your unique context. The best practice may not be from the neighboring destination. It may be from halfway around the world, and we want to make sure that you have information about what other destinations have done, what's worked, and what hasn't worked. And we also look forward to hearing from you about how else we can support you being the industry expert on this issue in your destination. So please send us feedback in the questions section of this presentation or in an email afterwards. So lastly, I want to talk about the fun stuff. Once you have addressed some of the regulatory challenges that may come up in your destination, it opens up so many opportunities for us to collaborate. And I want to share some examples of how we've collaborated with destinations around the world. And I would just remind you that we're still very young and we're still very open to experimentation. And so we're eager to brainstorm new ideas with you. And if you have a crazy idea, cool marketing idea that you're going to do with us, let us know. We want to be great partners to you and help highlight what's unique about your destination. So a couple ideas to inspire you. The first thing that we can do really well is help promote your destination in a way that really makes it stand out from the crowd. And the way we do that is highlighting what you already have, your local character through your local citizens and your neighborhoods. A couple of examples of how we've done this. We've worked with destination managers for the islands of the Bahamas, simply to help promote the existing villas and bed and breakfasts that they were promoting on their website, on our website. Very easily done. We can cross-list the listings on both websites and get extra eyeballs on the destination and on those unique properties. We worked with the city of Tel Aviv's destination management organization to promote Tel Aviv as a destination on the Airbnb website. And together we created an online guide to the city's diverse neighborhoods. All of this content was sourced from the Airbnb community, and all of the photographs were created by Airbnb photographers. We then gave the city of Tel Aviv all of the photographs for them to use in their own marketing materials. We can also be quite good at promoting off the beaten path experiences and neighborhoods within your destination. As I mentioned earlier, Airbnb travelers are quite curious and gregarious, and they want to get off the beaten path, and we can help show them what else there is to do in your destination. For example, in the city of San Francisco, we actually created a map together with the destination managers here, highlighting every single neighborhood in the city. Most tourist maps only show a small portion of the city. We wanted to show that every neighborhood in the city is worth visiting. And so we asked our hosts who live in each of these neighborhoods what their favorite things to do are within the city. This map is a paper map that we have printed and given to the city's visitor centers. So any guest to the city of San Francisco can now have a copy of this map. And all Airbnb hosts have a copy of this map so that their guests can explore the city with the guidance from hosts around the city. We also worked with the borough of Brooklyn in New York. Brooklyn has become a very popular place in our imagination through TV shows and clothing brands. But very few tourists actually know what to do when they go to Brooklyn in New York. And so we worked with the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, which promotes tourism in the neighborhood, to help promote the borough's diverse neighborhoods, and most importantly, to work with the small businesses in those neighborhoods to educate them about the importance of tourism, how to become visitor ready, and how they can connect with the Airbnb hosts who live in their neighborhoods who are sending them new customers every day. Something that I know many of you are probably interested in is Airbnb's ability to help accommodate peak occupancy. When you have a citywide sellout, or when you want to bid for the Olympics or another big event, you may not have or want to build new hotels to accommodate it. Airbnb can help you win those events and host them with success. And I have a couple really fun examples of how we've worked with some destinations to do that. My favorite example is Brazil. Many of you may recall that Brazil was in a rush to build enough hotels for the World Cup. It turned out that about 2 weeks before the games started, we got a phone call from the National Minister of Tourism saying, Airbnb, please help us. One of the host cities, Cuiabá, did not end up building enough rooms. Is there anything you can do to help? Within 2 weeks, we doubled the number of rooms in the host city of Cuiabá without building a single structure. We added 4,000 beds. All we did was reach out to local residents and said, open your doors to the world as they come to visit. And they did, in the thousands. Airbnb ended up being the biggest accommodation company in Brazil during the World Cup. It generated $38.3 million for ordinary Brazilian residents who opened their homes to World Cup visitors. And we even got the famous soccer player Ronaldinho to rent his home on Airbnb, which generated a lot of fun publicity promoting the World Cup to soccer fans from around the world. Another example, and more recent example, is the city of Philadelphia in the United States. As many of you may recall, the Pope visited Philadelphia this summer, and the city knew that they were going to need a lot more rooms to host the visitors. They knew that they would need to accommodate different kinds of travelers than maybe their accommodations were prepared for. Families, bigger groups, and some lower income travelers. And so they knew that they were going to need a diverse array of accommodation options. And so the city was very proactive. They created new regulations to simplify and clarify the rules around home sharing, to also ensure that the city would get the tax revenues from this activity. And they did all of this in preparation for the Pope's visit. Airbnb saw a 270% increase in listings after they changed those regulations and before the Pope's visit. And in the end, hotels had a 90% occupancy rate during that visit, and Airbnb hosts played a very crucial role in helping the city host visitors from around the world for this visit. So those are just a couple examples of how we have collaborated with destinations around the world. We would love to explore more opportunities with you all. And so if you have questions or ideas, we have about 15 minutes now to answer those questions. But I'd also like to put up here an email address, destinations@airbnb.com, that you can email if you would like to work with us. If you have questions, feedback, or suggestions, we would love to hear from you. So with that, I think I will hand it over for some questions.
Thank you so much, Molly, for that great presentation. We do have a ton of questions, not surprisingly. One note before we get started, of course, there's a lot of really specific local level questions about your specific tax codes that I'm sure you'd like to ask Molly about. For the purpose of this webinar today, we are going to answer some of the higher level overarching questions, but if you would like to submit local questions, please go ahead. We'll keep track of those as well. So to begin with, we had a lot of people asking about data and if Airbnb releases or sells or is planning to release or sell any data around the number of listings in a city, occupancy rates, etc.
That's a great question. We understand that you as destination managers need to keep track of how the industry is growing in your destination, how it's impacting your destination, and importantly, you need to make the case to your local elected officials about the significance of tourism within your destination. And we want to help you do that. And so we have provided destinations with anonymous aggregate data about the number of listings, the occupancy, the seasonality, and other things you're interested in to help inform your work and help make the case for tourism in your destination. We provide that data on a case-by-case basis in response to data requests that we get. And if you email destinations@airbnb.com with those specific requests and a description of what you're hoping to use that data for, our data team will try and get as much of it for you as possible. However, as we are in over 34,000 cities around the world, we are working to try and create some data sources that are more easily accessible to you whenever you need them. And our hope is that in 2016 we will be able to create some kind of portal that you can use to access that data on a regular basis. In the meantime, feel free to reach out to us to ask for that data, and we will do our best to respond in a timely manner.
Great, thank you. You talked about some hotels and the fact that maybe they don't see you guys as competitors. We had a couple people who mentioned, maybe more so at the local level, they have hoteliers on their boards who do see Airbnb sometimes as a threat. So is Airbnb willing to work with the destination to maybe appear at board meetings or to come to the destination and speak and do presentations for the local hotels in their destination?
Absolutely. You know, not all hotels are the same, and every hotel manager and owner is going to have a different perspective on how Airbnb is impacting their business. And like I said, we take a very collaborative approach to this and really believe that we can all coexist and we can all benefit the destination. And so we are very happy to come and speak at board meetings, to go and speak to your hotel councils and to speak with your hoteliers directly. To talk about the questions that they have and how together we can make sure the destination grows and thrives. Like I said, we have a global presence, and we are still a young company, so we can't be everywhere all the time. But we do have a growing team of people who are willing to fly around the world to attend board meetings and to speak directly with you and your constituents. So please, again, send us an email and a request, and if we can make it out there, we are very happy to.
Perfect. And you showed some examples of how Airbnb is partnering with DMOs and promoting the destination on your website. What about incorporating some of the brand elements of the destination? Is there ways for a DMO when they're partnering with you to increase access to their brand?
Sure. The way I'm understanding the question is, can Airbnb use some of the branded content and materials that a destination has developed when promoting a destination on the Airbnb website? I will say that Airbnb is relatively new to destination promotion, and unlike some other technology companies, we actually don't make money from destination promotions. So right now we don't charge destinations to advertise on our platform. It's very important to us that the destinations we promote and the content we use to promote them are authentic, and most of the content that we use comes directly from our community of hosts who live in the destination or travelers who have visited there. That said, we are beginning to experiment, as I reviewed, in collaborating with destination managers to highlight certain aspects of a destination. And we're very open to exploring ways that we can do that collaboratively.
That really leads in well to this next question, which I think is a great one, is have you guys done any research or have you noticed any trends looking at whether visitors are deciding their destination based on Airbnb listings? So do you know when visitors come to your site if they're looking at a specific destination that they've already decided to visit, or are they scanning across multiple destinations?
That's a great question. The short answer is yes. We know that Airbnb is attracting people to destinations because they are interested in a specific Airbnb property. Just a funny example. Tree houses are very popular on Airbnb. We have thousands of tree houses around the world. One of Airbnb's most popular listings is a tree house here in California, pretty much in the middle of nowhere, down near Santa Cruz, if you're familiar with the area. It has a 4-month waiting list. People from around the world have heard about this tree house and want to go to this remote part of California just to stay in the tree house. And you know they're not just staying up in the tree the whole time. They're exploring the whole region while they're there. And their local hosts who live in the house across the yard from the tree house help them figure out what to do in that destination. So we know that Airbnb is helping promote off the beaten path destinations because there are inspiring properties that people want to stay at. And we would like to work with destination managers to do more of that. So for example, the state of Oregon here in the United States is really looking into developing rural tourism and has asked us to come and speak on a panel next month about how rural destinations can work with the unique Airbnb properties in the rural areas to help develop a destination and market it to new kinds of travelers. And so like I said, we're really open to brainstorming some creative ways to promote off the beaten path destinations through unique Airbnb listings.
That's awesome. I'm going to have to check out that treehouse later. On the regulatory side, how is Airbnb handling commercial developers who are now renting multiple units in buildings with vacancy?
That's a great question. And the most important answer to this is it really depends on the destination and on the unique context there. Big cities like San Francisco that have affordable housing issues do not want big commercial developers buying up multiple properties to rent to tourists year-round. And we understand that. And that is why we work with the local government to create regulations that limit people's ability to do that and provide only the ability for people to rent their primary residences, the homes that they actually live in, to tourists. However, resort areas or other cities that perhaps have a lot of vacant housing may actually like it when vacant housing is being repurposed and used for tourists, and may actually like it that a commercial developer is buying a property, renovating it, and making it useful for tourists. So it really depends on the context of the destination, and we want to work with the destination to figure out what is going to work best in that context, and how can the destination create regulations that ensure that the kind of home sharing that flourishes there is one that will be overall the right fit for that destination.
That's great. When you arrange laws to collect and remit taxes, are you collecting and remitting for all hosts, or are hosts allowed to opt out of that program?
That is a really good question. When we create a voluntary collection agreement with the local jurisdiction, that is essentially saying that Airbnb will step into the shoes of the hosts and collect and remit the hotel tax on the host's behalf. And as you all likely know, it's not actually the host that's paying that tax, it's the tourist that's paying that tax. So we actually take it directly from the tourist. As far as I'm aware, there is not a way for hosts to opt out of that at this time. However, we've only been doing this for about a year, and we're still piloting this program with a variety of different kinds of jurisdictions. And so the way we set it up may evolve over the next year or years, depending on the jurisdiction and depending on what our hosts would prefer. At the end of the day, our goal is to make sure that the taxes are getting paid to the local jurisdiction and that we're making it as easy as possible for the local hosts. And so we're open to figuring out a variety of ways to achieve that goal.
Awesome. One of the things that has also come up frequently is quality standards and safety standards. Can you talk about how Airbnb works with the property managers or the local hosts to ensure standards are met?
Sure, that's a great question. Obviously, Airbnb is as concerned about quality and safety as any big hotel chain would. We want to make sure that both our hosts and our guests are safe and happy when they're using Airbnb. And so we really see it as a two-pronged approach. On the one hand, Airbnb has universal quality and safety standards that we communicate to all of the users who use our platform and that we enforce on our platform. And I encourage you to go to our website where there's a whole section on trust and safety that outlines those standards and how we enforce them. In addition to that, we believe that local regulations really help ensure the quality and safety of Airbnb properties on the ground. So for example, we know that my house in San Francisco was built according to San Francisco's residential building codes and safety codes, and we would assume that if it is safe enough for me, Molly, to live in as a resident, that it should also be safe for my guests to stay in as well. And so that's why we want to work collaboratively with local jurisdictions to make sure that they have appropriate quality and safety standards in place so that we can trust that our hosts who are renting properties in over 190 countries around the world are renting properties that we would feel very safe staying in ourselves.
So we've had a number of questions, and I know you can't speak for anyone other than yourself and Airbnb, but questions on what is the difference between Airbnb, traditional bed and breakfast in a destination, and also other companies like HomeAway and VRBO and Flipkey. What do you see as the difference between those?
Sure. I would point to two distinctions between us and those other kinds of businesses. One is the business model. Airbnb pioneered a new technological platform that makes it very, very easy for guests to book a property online. We handle the entire transaction online and all of the payments online. We created a $1 million host guarantee, which is basically an insurance policy. We allow people to pay security deposits. We can issue refunds. So one of the significant differences is our business model and the technological platform that we have built that really takes care of the end-to-end experience. And I should mention provides 24/7 customer support. If you show up at a property and it is not as advertised, or you lock yourself out and you can't reach your host, Airbnb can take care of you. The second difference, and this is perhaps the more significant difference, is bed and breakfasts and a lot of vacation rentals have existed for decades. What Airbnb has done differently is created a platform that makes it significantly easier for ordinary people to open their homes to visitors on an occasional basis. The vast majority of Airbnb hosts around the world, over 80%, are renting the home that they live in full-time on a very occasional basis, just a couple weeks a year. They are not renting out a property 365 days a year as a full-time business. And that is one of the significant differences between Airbnb's offering and other companies' offerings, that perhaps provides a more personal, local, authentic experience to travelers and offers thousands and millions more options than have ever been available before.
All right, I think we have time for just this one last question. We see the email address that we have on the screen right now. Is that the best way for destinations to get in contact with someone locally at Airbnb?
Yes. So email destinations@airbnb.com with your questions or comments. Like I said, we're a young, small company still, and so we don't have people available in all regions around the world, but we will do our best to get back in touch with you, to answer your questions, to provide you with the information that you're looking for, and if necessary, to also make someone available to meet in person when we're able to. So we look forward to hearing your feedback and questions, and we hope to get back to you and help you out as best as we can.
Well, Molly, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time today to be with us and for Airbnb's willingness to work with destinations. I want to pass over to Paul real quickly before we finish to talk about our next upcoming Destination Next webinars.
Super. Well, thank you, Jim. And again, Molly, thanks so much for doing this session today. I think this is such an important topic and so important to all of the DMOs in the room today on this call. There's two follow-up actions that I do want to commit to on behalf of Destination Next, working with Molly and some of the other sharing economy companies. Is I want to beef up the practices handbook. We've got a section in there now with just one example, Portland, Oregon, of a destination which is working with Airbnb, but it would be really useful, I think, for us to beef that up with other examples around the world. And also, Molly, we'd like to get your input into revising and tweaking our assessment model to have a clearer focus on the sharing economy portion of the destination assessment. So on that, thanks again everyone for participating. Watch for our announcements. We're planning webinars each month, as I said earlier. The next two that we're looking at One is dealing with destination development and tourism master planning, and the other one is working with TripAdvisor to engage consumers. There will be notices sent out for those. We'll be doing one each in April and May. So on that basis, thank you all for participating in our webinar today.